Hello, good evening, good morning. How are we doing? Hope everything is going well on your end. And if you are joining me live, this is an opportunity to talk about your career. What are your questions in the sustainability career that you are trying to build or are in already, and you're trying to expand it or take it to another level? Or maybe you have a business in sustainability. What is it? What have you got? Where are you dialing in from? And what are your questions? I will aim to stay on for the next half an hour, but of course, that is if I've got people on actively ready to ask me questions for the next half an hour. I've got some things to talk about, anyways. In the meanwhile, some questions that have come through beforehand. But of course, if you're here live, say hello. I can see a few of you on LinkedIn. So yeah, make sure you drop in and say hello and tell us where you're from, and share your questions, because I thought this would be a really cool way to just engage with you guys, because I know that more and more people are wanting to build their purpose-led career, and this idea of purpose-led, it's just being used so much, which means it's obviously important to people because they don't want to just make money to live. And I always butcher this saying, but it really is, life is the ultimate goal. It's not your career, your business. And so your life's purpose can really just be the absolute most important thing to align your career with. Sorry, I lost my train of thought as Afua jumped in and is saying hello, good morning. If you have any questions, Afua, please feel free to share them. What are your thoughts? You're in Accra, Ghana. Amazing. Thank you so much for joining. So yeah, share your questions. And so what I was really trying to say is it is really about your deepest purpose, okay, beyond anything else. And so when we are working in the space that really lights us up, then we show up in a way that is just unmatched. And it's not because you're trying to compare to anyone else, but just within your own self and the standard that you hold yourself to. It is just an unmatched energy when you come to the work, to the job every day with this unmatched energy and purpose. So yes, that's what it's all about, having a purpose-led career. And so there are a lot of market trends that are shifting at the moment. And I think, COVID's really shaken that up, and it's shown us that we can do things in a very agile, digitized market. And so they've just really shaken the market up and shown that we can actually adapt and we can do this whole thing, which is tackle climate change. It is an option. It is potential. And I feel optimistic about it, and so I think understanding the market, especially as you're shifting and pivoting your career, really comes down to one thing, and that is, probably comes down to lots of things, but the one thing I feel like everybody needs to start by looking at is looking at the UN SDGs, because the UN SDGs is the biggest global contract in some sense, or at least pact, that these biggest polluters have made to each other to say that they are ready to tackle climate change in an active way. So if that is the case, then that's where you start, by looking at the UN SDGs, figuring out which is the UN SDG out of the 17 that you really want to work within. And then from that, do your research and figure out what are the types of jobs that you could currently leverage your existing skill sets to apply to the market. Because once you focus down from the UN SDGs, then there's a really clear roadmap. You're essentially reverse engineering your career from an existing need. And I think that's super important, and especially when it's aligned with something that is obviously so huge and globally known. I mean, there's rarely a person on earth right now that doesn't know about the UN SDGs, regardless of being passionate about sustainability or not. So that's where I would start when I think about market trends. And I know that question has come up a lot. So yeah, it sort of leads to the thing that I mentioned within it, but the one I want to talk about next, which is about leveraging your skills. So a lot of people feel like they need to go and get an accreditation, get a certification, and make sure that they've ticked all the boxes before they put themselves out into the world. But the reality is that most of even the sustainability professionals, experts, thought leaders that I know, they don't necessarily have, they have lots of great qualifications, but they're not all aligned to the thing that they're actually doing. And that's not to say that, if you wanted to work in the policy space, specifically around the legalities of it, that you don't need a degree in law. You, of course, need the right training to actually do the work. It's certain types of work. If you're going to be a GRI accredited assessor, then of course you need a GRI accreditation. But what I'm getting at is right now, you have a skill set. You need to figure out what that is for yourself. You have a skill set that you can absolutely start to apply to a sustainable career or a sustainable business. And so figuring out what that is really a part of understanding that you can leverage your current skill sets, and they're super valuable. So figuring out, are you a really great collaborator? Do you bring the right people together? Can you do that? Can you marry two groups of people who would not have otherwise found each other? Are you able to do the right stakeholder and engagement, and so make sure that the communities that are being impacted by certain development acts, are they being heard, and how do you effectively manage that conversation? Are you really good at pitching value to investors? Maybe that's your skill set. And you might think, well, how is that related to sustainability? Well, it absolutely is, because this is the thing about sustainability. As much as some people might not like the word just because it's so overused, it's holistic. And what does that mean? That means that everybody is needed. All the skill sets are needed. And so for me, a big thing, I know even in my B2B work, I always talk to these decision makers when I'm reaching out to them, is that you're not the only one who should be in the meeting. We need key people from all of the areas of your business, because legal is required, finance is required, business admin are required. Everybody needs to be there. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. So look, I can still see some of you are definitely on here live. So please feel free to shoot in a question if you have one. And, I'll obviously keep talking. I definitely have some more things to talk about. So, I guess, commercialization of ideas, we're going to need specific questions around that, but there is definitely a commercial avenue for most ideas, and figuring out what that is super important. I mean, just recently I spoke with somebody who had HR skills, and so the psychology is part of their learning and understanding buying habits. And so what that led to is, because they were really passionate about food systems and the wastage that happens specifically in retail, we came up with the idea, well, why don't we marry this idea around your knowledge on psychology, specifically women, because women play the biggest role in a household in terms of their buying habits for the household. And so because most women are passionate about sustainability much more than men, then why don't you look at an option for commercializing your service in helping these retailers or these manufacturers improve their product strategy, so that they are accounting to tailor that to the women's needs. And specifically in the location that she was located, this was not happening. So this was a real need. And so that's the whole idea of commercialization of ideas. And so, obviously it's going to be very different for different ideas. But it's interesting to know that, you can absolutely commercialize your idea. It's just about figuring out how, and that's really about opening it up to others with experience across different areas and figuring out, what has worked before, what hasn't, and then what could you potentially try. So I sort of covered accreditations and certifications anyways, really earlier on. They're important. And of course, you're not going to have a lawyer building a bridge necessarily. You're going to have a civil engineer doing that. You're going to have a lawyer writing up the contracts, and that's a must. But of course, what I'm getting at with, the certifications, accreditations, is they're important. They have a place, but you can leverage your skills now. So, don't hold back. Don't wait for things to be perfect. That's not yeah, that's definitely not the right approach, because it will just hold you back. And when I say not the right approach, it's not about right versus wrong. It actually, more importantly, is about empowerment, just knowing that you can do it now. You don't need to wait. Yeah, hey Murugesh, Murugesh, thank you for joining. And of course, if you have any questions, just drop in. I'll probably be hanging around for another 10 minutes. So because I don't know if I can handle the sound of my voice for much longer. So the other thing that people I know really struggle with is finding their people, the blue ocean. So I think it's a marketing term. It's really, who is your blue ocean? So who is your ideal customer avatar? Because not everybody is going to be interested in what you have to say, and that's okay. That's totally fine. Finding the people that are aligned with you and are drawn to you because they're the ones that are going to buy from you is a very important exercise, and something that everybody should do in very specific detail. Like, of course, we look at demographics, their age, their titles, their location, number of houses they have, I don't know, all of the demographic related metrics. But in addition to that, you need to be looking at their psychographics, what are their needs, their wants, their pain points? What do they really struggle with? What can you take off the table for them so that they can leverage some of their time, some of their resources to do the things that are most important to them? And so there is always an angle from your sustainable skill set perspective on what you can do for your blue ocean, your people, and according to their needs. So yeah, it's where do these people, and then figuring out where do these people hang out. So everybody's on social media, and most of the people that I talk to, of course, and I agree, I'm very frequent on LinkedIn, but I'm also very frequent on Facebook. And so I know that LinkedIn tends to be the one that people mostly will choose if they are considering themselves professionals, and that's where they want to really build their professional network. But the thing is, all of these CEOs, all of these directors, all of these operations people and managers and whoever it is that you need to speak to, they all hang out on Facebook as well. And there are also heaps of Facebook groups that are super valuable and where people hang out. So finding where your people are and talking to them exactly about their needs. So figuring that out through this entire demographic, psychographic process is very important. So I can see there's about 8 of you on. Hello, welcome. Thanks for sticking with me if you've been here from the beginning. 9 of you now. So yeah, I'm hoping some questions do come through. I haven't seen any questions yet. I mean, I have some things to still talk about, but it'd be good to actually respond to your questions, who of you that are on here right now, and specifically share some hopefully value. So I think Murugesh has asked, share some basic articles or study material to study to make a career in sustainability. So I did cover this a little bit earlier, and I think this is something that I don't feel that it is right for me to give you the specific course for you to study, and that's because there are so many out there, and also it really depends on your location. But 2 bits of advice, and this is related to what I kind of covered earlier around accreditations and certifications, is that you would start with looking at the global frameworks. And so, of course, the UN SDGs really kind of sits on top of everything. And there are so many moving parts to this. There's the GRI, SASB, ISSP. There's a lot of moving global frameworks around sustainability and governance. And so I would start with the UN SDGs, finding which UN SDG really lights you up, the space that you want to work in. Is it conscious consumption? Is it clean energy? And then doing your research from that to figure out what are the courses out there. And my only thought on the course that you choose, the second point that I wanted to make, is to choose one that is globally recognized. So you can certainly do one that is at a national level, and that will, of course, be plenty of value. But doing one that is globally recognized just gives you that little extra edge, so that people around the world will know specifically, if you say I'm accredited in X, they know X straight away because it's a globally recognized course. So that's my thoughts. And so, yes, your second comment, industry to industry sustainability target are differing. What are the common matrix to follow? Sustainability target. Yeah, so I think I kind of tied that in really earlier with the UN SDGs, starting there and then leaning on the well, they're not really but they are their own frameworks in their own right. But I really do feel the UN SDG sits atop all of this just because it is a global contract / promise that these countries have all made to each other. But within that sort of setting, you've got the GRI, you've got the SASB, ISSP, the VR, which is the Value Reporting Framework. So these are the biggest and most resounding frameworks that are being followed by all of the biggest corporates. I know from my conversations, they're all wanting GRI accreditation, value reporting accreditation, the greenhouse protocol. So these are some of the biggest ones. So I would look at those in terms of the most common matrix to follow. They all come from different perspectives though. There's the risk-based perspective or there's the value-based perspective. Some of them are specifically looking at greenhouse gases, i.e. the greenhouse gas protocol. So I would look at those global frameworks in terms of common matrix to follow. And I guess, moving on to the next thing, often I see that, the people that I am speaking to, they don't have a clear brand and an active network. And so building your brand, U.Inc., I talk about this a lot because I think that, your title, whatever it is now, working as operations manager at company X, and prior to that, you were director of goods and services at company Y. These things, they all come and go. They fall away and they fall away and it's fleeting, essentially, is what I'm getting at. No problem, Murugesh. So the one thing that's consistent, though, is you, what you represent, U.Inc. And so building your brand and your network is vital. And whether you choose to do that on LinkedIn or you choose to do that on Facebook, all okay. It's just about focusing in on that one platform and doubling down if you don't have the capacity for multiple platforms, but really building a strong brand and continuously networking with the right people. So finding your people, where do they hang out, and engaging with them, building that human connection. Super, super important because people buy from people. They want to connect with you and they want to know you're a real human being. So reading materials for crafting a sustainability, this is from Afua, for crafting a sustainability charter for the financial and construction sectors. So it's a little bit broad and a little bit specific in terms of what you're asking. So around the financial side of things, I would probably look at the TCFD. So I have an ebook as well on this. You can absolutely have a look at it on my website. And the TCFD is a task force on climate-related financial disclosure. So using that as a guide to build out your sustainability charter, that would be really valuable. Or the TNFD, which is also a financial framework, but about nature-related. So TCFD is climate-related, so it's really around climate risk. And the TNFD is around nature, so natural capital, and really how our life as human beings is impacting natural capital and valuing that. In terms of construction, the biggest, almost well-known rating schemes out there is probably LEED or WELL. They are not the only ones out there. There are actually heaps out there, but LEED is probably the most well-known, not so much WELL, in fact. LEED, so LEED, is the most well-known construction framework, I believe, from what I know. And so I know even in Australia, we have the Green Building Fund and Green Star rating, and they are also built on the LEED rating just because of how well used LEED is. But of course, there's heaps of others out there. It just really depends on which is most aligned to what you're wanting to do. Well, for example, is around well-being, and it's really human-centric. LEED is very much about the actual construction of the building, the embedded materials and carbon and so on. Then, of course, there's others such as Living Building Challenge, which is one of the most difficult ones, they say, to achieve, but it is the most challenging building accreditation, so construction accreditation. So probably these accreditations are ones to start looking at. There's heaps I could reel off, but that's not really the point here. I think the point is what's the most well-known one that you could consider, and it's probably LEED. Yeah, no problem, Afua. Thanks for the question. Thanks for the question, Murugesh, as well. So I'm actually going to end off on my one last thought. And I know I've got here starting a business, but that's such a big one in itself. So I'm really going to go down to limiting beliefs. And so for those of you on here, this is the really important stuff. We live our lives to please others and to really respond to others' expectations of us. And when I say others, it may be someone specific or it may be society, because society has given us a list of checkboxes that we need to tick off to live a successful and valuable life. But if it doesn't feel good, it probably isn't good. And so really looking within, and this is also a huge one. Limiting beliefs, they come in so many different forms and shapes and sizes. So ultimately, I think what it really whittles down to is, does it feel good? And if it does, then do it. There are going to be people that are going to say, you can't right now, you shouldn't, maybe wait, whatever they have to say, but nobody is going to ultimately make your life better but yourself. So don't hold back. We need more people in this space doing this good work and working towards a more harmonious life in the planet that we only have. So yeah, get out there, do the damn thing. Don't wait around. Don't wait for the silver platter, okay? And look, if you're wanting to have a chat, you're ready for that ultimate career, that business, then let's jump on a call. Be more than happy to get to know you. And there are a couple of questions to, answer before we jump on the call, but, put in as much detail, because the more detail you put in, then the better I can understand you and hopefully help you as well. So thank you all for joining. I know that quite a few of you have stayed on this for the whole half an hour, so I really do appreciate it. Have an amazing day, amazing evening, afternoon, and take care, everybody. We'll talk to you all soon.